Welcome back. Today's mission is to unpack everything we know about the source material, the historical context, and the lasting influence of Hayao Miyazaki's landmark 2001 film, Spirited Away.
Or, as it is known in Japan, Senta Chihiro no Kamikakushi.
Exactly. It's a film that really demands a closer look, both for its art and its incredible cultural impact.
It absolutely does.
And for you, the listener, we're focusing today not on the sequence of the plot itself. We're not going to recount Chihiro's journey scene by scene. Instead, we're looking at the profound cultural effects, the history of its development, some of the production insights, and of course, the powerful legacy it holds today.
Right. We're trying to find those knowledge nuggets that explain why this movie did more than just break box office records.
It fundamentally altered the global perception of what animation could even be.
To set the stage, you have to recognize this film is a monumental achievement. It was written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, produced by Toshio Suzuki, and animated by, the legendary Studio Ghibli.
With distribution by Toho.
Right. And the context you really need for a discussion is simple. The film follows a young girl, Chihiro Ujino, as she's thrust into the hidden world of kami.
The spirits of Japanese Shinto folklore.
Exactly. And this happens right after her parents undergo this terrible transformation. That initial premise is what immediately kicks off the deep cultural and social critiques that really form the film's architecture.
That sets the framework perfectly. So let's start with the philosophical roots. Okay, let's unpack this. What really drove Miyazaki to create this specific story at this particular moment in his career?
Well, what's fascinating here is how intensely personal the film's inspiration was. I mean, despite the incredible scale of the final production, Miyazaki's primary goal was to make a film specifically for 10-year-old girls.
That specific in age?
Very specific. The direct push came from visits from the daughter of his friend, Seiji Okuda, who was the film's associate producer. She used to spend summers at Miyazaki's mountain cabin.
And he felt he hadn't made a film for her age group yet.
Exactly. He realized he'd made films for younger kids, like My Neighbor Totoro, and even for older teens, like Kiki's Delivery Service. But he hadn't quite captured the spirit of a 10-year-old girl in that, in-between stage.
10 is such a specific moment, that pivot between childhood and, well, the complexities of being a teenager. Did the sources say what he thought was missing from other stories for that age group?
They did. He actually did research by reading popular shoujo manga magazines like Nakayoshi and Ribbon that the girls had left at his cabin.
Okay.
And he found them, well, disappointing. He felt they focused too much on superficial things like crushes and romance. He said that wasn't what these young girls truly held dear in their hearts.
So he decided he needed to offer a different kind of role model.
Precisely. A young heroine they could genuinely look up to. One who didn't rely on, some external magic or a sudden transformation to succeed.
So that became the philosophical brief from the very beginning. The journey had to be about internal manifestation, not some external change.
That's the key. Miyazaki consistently said this was not a story of Chihiro's growth in a traditional sense. It was a story where she draws upon an existing inner strength that was just dormant.
And it was triggered by the circumstances she was thrown into.
Yes. He wanted to show his young audience that they already had that courage inside them. He even admitted that at the start of production, he was a little frustrated by Chihiro's dull appearance.
Really?
Yes, he asked, "She's cute. Isn't there something we can do?" But that initial reaction just underscores his goal, to start with an ordinary, relatable, maybe even slightly whiny girl.
Right, so the audience can sympathize with her plight when everything goes wrong, when her parents turn into pigs and the world literally floods around her.
Exactly. Her situation is terrifying.
That initial perspective, calling her dull, it raises a question. If the strength was always there, why did he struggle with her depiction at first? How did the animator solve that without just, giving her a makeover?
The solution wasn't visual, it was expressive. The sources say that as the film neared completion, Miyazaki felt relieved. He believed Chihiro would be a charming woman by the end.
And that charm wasn't about her looks.
Not at all. It was about the dignity and resilience she showed in her actions. The animators focused on these subtle shifts in her posture, the seriousness in her eyes, the determination in her movements.
I see.
So you, the audience, witness her strength coming out through these difficult, selfless choices, like helping the river spirit, not through a sudden power-up. It keeps her journey feeling vulnerable and real.
And while that vision was clear in the end, the sources note this project was actually Miyazaki's third proposal, so the road to production wasn't exactly smooth.
That's right. He wanted to start a new film years earlier, but his two previous ideas were rejected.
What were they?
One was based on a children's book, The Mysterious Town Over the Fog. The other was about a high school-aged heroine. It was the third proposal, the one centered on the magical bathhouse, that finally got the green light from the producers.
And the bathhouse setting itself was steeped in a kind of personal mystery for him, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The core idea for the setting came from a mysterious bathhouse in Miyazaki's own hometown. He remembered a small, intriguing door next to one of the tubs, and he always wondered what was behind it.
And that curiosity sparked the whole spirit world.
It was the seminal idea.
So production finally started on this idea in February 2000, and given the scope of it and Ghibli's reputation, it must have had a massive financial commitment.
The initial budget was substantial, yes. It was $1.9 billion, which was about 15 million US dollars at the time.
A huge undertaking.
A huge undertaking. And it was a joint production with several major companies, Takumi Shoten, Nippon Television Network, Dentsu, Buena Vista Home Entertainment, and others.
So there was a lot of confidence in Miyazaki's vision, especially after the success of Princess Mononoke.
Oh, absolutely. The industry was behind it.
With a budget that large, there must have been some technical pressures, especially with the rise of computer animation.
That was the primary technical challenge, really. Finding the right balance between Studio Ghibli's traditional, hand-drawn aesthetic and the new digital technology. They continued to use computer animation programs like Softimage 3D, but Miyazaki had very strict rules. The tech was only to be used to enhance the hand-drawn elements.
Not to replace them.
Never. It was for things like creating depth in the backgrounds, or some of the glowing lights in the bathhouse, or maybe some highly complex, repetitive movements.
Can you give a specific example of that technological restraint? How did they make sure the CG didn't steal the show, as he put it?
Sure. A critical area was the water. You have
Yeah.
the flooding river at the beginning and that famous string journey sequence.
Right.
Hand-drawing water like that is incredibly labor-intensive. So Softimage 3D was used to create the base movement and the reflections, but it was meticulously blended with hand-drawn elements to keep that classic Ghibli weight and texture. And for something like the Stink Spirit, the CG helped manage the sheer volume of it, but all the detailed surface textures and expressions were always hand-painted. So the technology served the story. It never replaced the animators.
Beyond the tech, you mentioned another constraint. The story itself was just too long at first.
This was a huge difficulty for Miyazaki. When he followed his initial outline, he realized the film would run for well over 3 hours.
Wow.
So he had to delete numerous scenes. He actively tried to reduce what he called the eye candy, those visually gorgeous but, narratively unnecessary moments. It was a very deliberate pacing choice.
He wanted to keep the focus simple, like Chihiro's own determination.
Exactly. He was forced to focus only on the essential events that highlighted her survival and her selflessness.
Let's turn to the visual foundation now. The real-world locations that inspired the spirit world's design, starting with that sense of nostalgia Miyazaki talked about.
That feeling of nostalgia is crucial, especially for those pseudo-Western style buildings you see in the Spirit Town. Miyazaki often visited the Edo Tokyo Open-Air Architectural Museum in Koganai, Tokyo. It preserves buildings from the Meiji period, when Japan was rapidly adopting Western architectural styles.
So he based the spirit world's buildings on those structures.
Some of them, yes, like the offices and abandoned storefronts. He said he felt a profound sense of longing there. He said, especially when I stand here alone in the evening, tears well up in my eyes.
So that feeling of lament for a bygone era is woven right into the film's environment.
Deeply woven. It's that longing for the past against the capitalist chaos of the spirit world. It's a powerful paradox.
Were there specific Japanese inns or ryokans that inspired the Aburaya bathhouse itself?
There are a few famous locations that are often cited in the sources as possible influences. The Notoya Ryokan in Yamagata Prefecture is one, known for its intricate architecture and red bridge entrance.
Okay.
And also the Dugo Onsen, which is one of Japan's oldest and most famous hot springs bathhouses. That's often cited as a key visual touchstone for the size and complexity of the building.
So it's a blend of these grand historical Japanese buildings. We should also address the common rumor about the town of Jufin in Taiwan.
That's an important clarification, yes. Although Jufin does bear a striking resemblance to parts of the spirit world, especially those steep, illuminated alleyways.
Miyazaki denied it was an inspiration.
He did. He specifically denied it. The visual models were rooted in his personal experiences and architectural history within Japan.
Before we move on to the thematic material, we have to talk about the soundscape. Joe Hisaishi's score is just inseparable from the film's feeling.
The music is absolutely foundational. Joe Hisaishi, Miyazaki's longtime collaborator, composed and conducted the score, and it was performed by the New Japan Philharmonic.
And it was recognized immediately for its quality.
Oh yes, it won numerous major Japanese awards, including the Mainichi Film Competition Award for Best Music. Hisaishi's scores provide so much emotional depth, especially in moments where the characters are silent. It perfectly complements Chihiro's inner turmoil.
And the closing song, Always With Me, has a fascinating origin story that actually predates the film.
This detail gives you such a crucial insight into Miyazaki's creative process. The song, Itsumonando Demo, was written and performed by Yumi Kimura. And it was actually intended for a completely different, abandoned Miyazaki project called Rin the Chimney Painter.
No way.
Yes. The sources say that when Miyazaki was struggling to figure out his next project, he heard Kimura's song. He himself explained that the song, in fact, inspired him to create Spirited Away in the first place. He found a story that matched the emotional longing in the melody.
That's incredible. So the music didn't just underscore the film.
The film was essentially built around the emotional tone of the song. It shows the profound connection from the very beginning.
And the song went on to be a huge success in its own right.
It did. It was recognized as gold at the 43rd Japan Record Awards, cementing its place in the film's legacy.
Now, let's get into the film's deeper structure. If we connect all this background to the bigger picture, the entire journey functions as this dense lens for modern Japanese societal critiques, all expressed through folklore.
Absolutely. The film uses Chihiro's struggle as a framework to explore these fundamental cultural concepts. And the first, and maybe the most central, is the importance of identity.
Right.
The whole journey is framed by the traditional Japanese folklore concept of kamikakushi.
Can you elaborate on what kamikakushi really means in this context for the listener?
So kamikakushi literally translates to hidden by gods. In traditional culture, it refers to the mysterious disappearance of a person, usually a child, who is believed to have been taken by spirits.
A social death, as the sources put it.
Exactly. In the film's context, it signifies a social death in the human world. The person is gone, their identity is erased. So to return from kamikakushi requires a kind of social resurrection.
Meaning they have to reestablish their identity to reintegrate?
Yes, they have to find continuity with their past life. And the witch, Yubaba, enforces this social death immediately.
She does it in the most powerful way imaginable, by stealing Chihiro's name.
And replacing it with sin, which means 1,000. By taking that essential part of her identity, Yubaba symbolically kills the child Chihiro and forces her to take on a new disposable identity just to survive.
It's a form of control, reducing her to a number, a unit of labor.
It is. And Haku gives her that crucial warning. If you forget your real name completely, like he did, you can never leave the spirit world.
So substituting her name with Sen is a dual critique then. It's not just a spiritual warning about losing yourself.
It's also a comment on modern economics.
Yeah.
That interpretation is strongly supported. Beyond the rite of passage idea, renaming her Sen, 1,000, can be read as a potent symbol of how industrial capitalism reduces the individual.
It's a concern with monetary value over personhood.
Precisely. Her identity becomes secondary to her utility and her output.
Let's delve further into that world she's forced into, emphasizing the supernaturalism at play. The bathhouse is essentially a refuge for spirits.
It is, and the prevalence of kami is central to the film's unique texture. The bathhouse, Aburaya, is a place where this huge variety of Japanese folklore creatures, the kami, come to bathe and refresh themselves. Miyazaki drew heavily on the idea of solstice rituals, where villagers would summon their local kami into their hot springs. Chihiro encounters spirits of animals, plants, rivers. It shows the vast, interconnected spirit population of the natural world.
And this wasn't just decorative world building, was it? It tied directly into Miyazaki's own environmental philosophy.
Indeed. Miyazaki spoke about his personal beliefs, that in his grandparents' time, people believed that kami existed everywhere, in trees, in rivers, and insects.
So there's a life force in everything.
Yes. And while he acknowledged his generation might not hold that literal belief, he strongly champions the idea that humans should treasure everything because spirits might live there, or simply because there is a kind of life to everything. That philosophy is the ethical compass that guides Chihiro.
Which brings us to the moment that launches her whole ordeal. Her parents' transformation into pigs. This is probably the film's most direct critique of modern consumer society.
That transformation is an incredibly blunt and effective symbol. Their sudden change after indulging in that feast represents unrestrained greed and bad habits.
And Miyazaki linked it directly to Japan's bubble economy of the 1980s.
He did. The sources highlight those specific visual markers of Western consumerism that define the parents, their imported Audi car, and the father saying he has his credit cards in cash right before it happens.
The abandoned theme park itself feels like a metaphor.
It is. With its garish neon signs and sense of westernization, it's a metaphor for a culture corrupted by uncritical consumption.
It sounds like the critique was very targeted.
It was. Miyazaki said the parents turning into pigs symbolizes how some humans become so greedy they lose their humanity. He specifically said there were people who turned into pigs during the bubble economy, and they still haven't realized it.
Wow.
He called the feast that eat a trap to catch lost humans, reinforcing the idea that reckless consumerism is a spiritual danger.
And that capitalist influence permeates the spirit world itself. We see Western style used to signify exploitation primarily through Yubaba.
Yubaba's design is a deliberate contrast. She wears a Western dress and lives in this lavish apartment with European decor.
Which is completely different from the minimalist Japanese-style employee quarters.
Exactly. That juxtaposition symbolizes the invasive influence of Western capitalist systems over Japan, especially after the Meiji period. It suggests this foreign influence fosters corruption and excess.
This environment of greed and excess raises an important question. What's so fascinating is how the character of No-Face perfectly embodies this critique.
No-Face is fundamentally a spiritual mirror. He enters the bathhouse as this empty shell, just reflecting Chihiro's loneliness.
Right.
But once he's inside, he learns by example from those around him. His terrifying descent into monstrous behavior, demanding all that food, mimicking the gold from the river spirit, is a direct result of the corrupt environment he's in.
So without a moral compass, he just embodies the system's values.
Precisely. And his transformation is reversed purely by changing that environment.
Right. When Chihiro takes him away from the bathhouse to Zeniba's cottage.
Exactly. Once he's with Zeniba, who lives this humble life of weaving, he immediately becomes timid and harmless again. It suggests that our social and environmental context is a primary driver of our ethical behavior.
Beyond the critique of consumption, the film is an incredibly powerful environmental commentary shown through two major spirit characters. This is where the concept of Matanai comes in.
Yes, the environmental message is very potent. Let's first address Matanai. It's a Japanese term that roughly means a sense of regret concerning waste. It's about valuing resources and not wasting anything.
And how does that principle show up in the narrative?
Powerfully. It's when Chihiro confronts the stink spirit. It's this foul, grotesque creature covered in sludge. But Chihiro, driven by her desire to help, realizes it's actually a revered river spirit, just corrupted with human filth. By cleaning it, pulling out trash, car tires, even a bicycle, she restores its purity. It's a very literal allusion to human pollution.
And the second, more poignant critique is connected to Haku's story.
Haku's struggle is a profound statement on the cost of human development. His amnesia, his bondage to the bathhouse, it's all linked to the destruction of his home.
He was the spirit of the Kohaku River.
Yes, which was destroyed and filled in to build apartments. The parallel is unmistakable. Destroying a natural habitat doesn't just cause ecological damage, it annihilates the spiritual identity of that place. Haku's loss of identity is a metaphor for that spiritual imbalance.
It's clear that this thematic richness made the film a massive success in Japan, but here's where it gets really interesting. The sources show that Spirited Away didn't just stay a beloved Japanese film, it completely redefined animation's global standing.
The domestic success was, well, it was staggering. It set unprecedented records. When it was released in Japan on July 20, 2001, it grossed a record $1.6 billion, about $13.1 million in its first 3 days.
And that immediately surpassed Princess Mononoke.
Immediately.
To put that into perspective for the listener, how long did it hold that top spot?
It was #1 at the Japanese box office for 11 consecutive weeks. And more significantly, it went on to become the highest-grossing film in Japanese history, with $31.68 billion.
A record it held for 19 years.
19 years, until 2020. It also set the all-time attendance record in Japan, selling more tickets than even Titanic. This wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon.
And internationally, its success broke records even before its major U.S. distribution.
That's right. It was the first film to gross over $200 million worldwide without including the United States. That was a rare achievement for a non-English language film at the time.
The story of its eventual release in China is also fascinating.
It is. The delay was 18 years, partly due to political tensions, but it finally premiered there in 2019. And even though many Chinese audiences already knew the film from, well, piracy, the theatrical release was a huge success. It topped the box office in its opening weekend, beating Pixar's Toy Story 4.
And its wide international exposure, especially North America, really hinged on the advocacy of one key figure from Pixar.
John Lasseter. He played a crucial role. He was not just a fan, but a personal friend of Miyazaki. The sources say he would often screen Miyazaki's films for his Pixar staff when they hit creative roadblocks.
So when he saw Spirited Away,
He was described as ecstatic. He immediately recognized its quality and personally convinced Disney CEO Michael Eisner to acquire the North American distribution rights.
and that Disney connection was crucial. Lasseter didn't just stop there, did he? He became the guardian of the English adaptation.
He essentially became the creative overseer. He was the executive producer for the English dub, and he assembled a top-tier team, including Kirk Wise, who co-directed Beauty and the Beast.
And they were meticulous with the dubbing process.
Extremely meticulous. The screenwriters were hired specifically to pen English dialogue that matched the original Japanese lip movements as closely as possible to preserve the animation's integrity.
But despite all that high-profile involvement, the sources say the initial marketing campaign in the U.S. was very subdued.
The advertising was severely limited. At its peak in 2002, the film was only shown in 151 theaters.
That's a tiny number for a Disney release.
It is. Some analysts suggest this was because Studio Ghibli retained all the merchandising rights, which limited Disney's ability to market the film through toys and other tie-ins.
But regardless of the quiet promotion, the film's artistic merit was undeniable, and it earned overwhelming recognition through major awards.
The list of accolades is immense. It won the prestigious Golden Bear at the 2002 Berlin International Film Festival, sharing the honor with Bloody Sunday. Domestically, it swept the Japan Academy Awards.
And then came the ultimate global validation a year later.
Yes, at the 75th Academy Awards in 2003, Spirited Away made history. It became the first hand-drawn, non-English language animated film to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature.
And that Oscar victory was a major turning point.
It was. Disney significantly expanded its U.S. theatrical run after that, and it also won the Annie Award, the Saturn Award, and the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Animated Feature.
The critical consensus wasn't just positive, it was, universal acclaim.
It was. On Metacritic, it has a score of 96 out of 100. The legendary critic Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars and added it to his great movies list. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times called it the product of a fierce and fearless imagination.
And its status hasn't diminished at all over time. It keeps appearing on best of the century lists.
Its endurance is exceptional. In 2016, a BBC poll of critics voted it the 4th best film of the 21st century, the highest-ranking animated film on that list. The New York Times ranked it 2nd. Rolling Stone ranked it 15th. It has completely transcended the category of children's animation.
This film really did more than just win awards. It fundamentally changed how the Western film industry viewed animation as a medium.
It was a monumental shift. It legitimized the entire Japanese animation industry in the West. Professor Raina Dennison observed that it arrived when animation was widely seen as a genre solely for children.
And Spirited Away shattered that idea.
Completely. It proved that a Japanese film, centered on Japanese folklore, could resonate deeply with audiences around the world, regardless of age.
So the Oscar win became a professional benchmark.
Exactly. Writer Jonathan Clements called it a wake-up call for executives who had disregarded Japanese animation. And Professor Susan Napier said the win was a very big shot in the arm for the industry.
Because it helped people see animation as a real art form.
A real art form, yes. Moving away from the perception of it being childish or vulgar.
And the film's influence wasn't just theoretical. It had a direct impact on major Western filmmakers.
The admiration was widespread. Steven Spielberg said it might be better than any Disney films he had ever seen.
Wow.
And has been cited as a direct inspiration for major projects. For Pixar's Coco, they looked at how Spirited Away handled spiritual elements.
I recall the source material also cited its influence outside of animation.
It did. The writers of Marvel's Eternals cited it as an influence for exploring ideas of morality and humanity. And Domi Shi, who directed Turning Red for Pixar, also named it as a key influence. It's a touchstone of global cinema.
An enduring legacy isn't just about influence, it's about being able to translate across different mediums, and we've seen that recently with a major stage production.
The 2022 stage adaptation is a powerful affirmation of its lasting relevance. It was produced by Toho, with Studio Ghibli's full blessing, and written and directed by the Tony Award-winning John Caird.
A huge deal in the theatrical world.
A huge deal. The demanding lead role of Chihiro was double cast with two highly successful actresses, Kana Hashimoto and Moe Kamishiraishi.
And the production success wasn't just contained to Japan.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Its international demand led to a European premiere at the London Coliseum in 2024 with most of the original Japanese cast. That transition from a culturally specific film to a globally touring theatrical event just highlights its permanent place in world arts. So in synthesis, what we've seen is that the story of Spirited Away is immensely layered. It uses deep Japanese cultural concepts like kami, the spirits in nature, and matanai, that regret toward waste, to frame its commentary on identity, consumerism, and the environmental crisis.
And Chihiro's plight, being so fearful and helpless at first, is just profoundly sympathetic.
It is. Her ability to draw on her internal strength to survive and help others provides this powerful core that resonates across all cultures.
So what does this all mean? The film is an artistic and commercial anomaly that broke every barrier. By becoming the first hand-drawn, non-English language film to win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, Spirited Away irrevocably opened the door for non-Western features to be seen not as niche films, but as global cinematic masterpieces.
And in doing so, it legitimized animation itself as a serious and powerful art form in the West.
That legitimacy leaves us with a provocative thought for you, the listener. We know Chihiro eventually regained her name and returned to the human world, but the sources tell us she was still wearing the protective hairband that Zeniba had made for her. So consider what that hairband, a physical token from the spirit world that she keeps, implies about the true nature of her transformation. And ask yourself, can one truly go back to being ordinary once they have experienced the extraordinary, frightening, and ultimately strengthening world of the spirits?
Thanks for listening. We hope this examination of the source material was valuable for you.